officials in Switzerland have given new details about how they think a fire at a bar in a ski resort started, killing 40 people. They believe that sparklers on top of champagne bottles held close to the ceiling caused the fire, which then ripped through the bar during the early hours of New Year's Day. We know that 40 people have died and more than 119 others were injured. Most of them were young people and are being treated for severe burns. Authorities say it could take days or even weeks to identify all the victims. Among the injured are people from Switzerland, France, Italy, Serbia, Bosnia, Belgium, Luxembourg, Poland and Portugal. Well, here's what authorities have said in the last hour about the investigation into the cause of the fire.
Everything leads us to think that the fire started from sparkling candles or sparklers which were put on bottles of champagne, and that was moved too close to the ceiling. From that, a blaze began quickly, very quickly, and a general blaze.
Well, we now know that the likely cause of the fire, but authorities say they're pursuing a number of angles. In fact, they say the investigation will look at whether foam on the ceiling of the bar complied with regulations. The French managers of the bar where the fire broke out have also been interviewed. Here's what officials said when asked about criminal liability.
There will be the possibility or not to consider whether there is a penal liability which could affect people. If that is the case, and if those people are still alive, there will be a case opened against them.
One survivor recounted how he managed to escape the blaze.
I was there where it started. I had my friend in my arms. She slipped. Unfortunately today, she has gone missing. I had to take a table down to protect myself from the flames, overturn it and hide behind it, because the flames had started pounding and people were trying to go upstairs. There was a crowd, so I thought I was going to get burned if I tried to push. I was waiting for the people to get upstairs. I ran afterwards and we couldn't see anything. I grabbed a table and banged it against the windows, but it was plexiglass, it wasn't breaking, so I kicked it and everything fell down. There wasn't enough light, we couldn't see at all. And secondly, there was only a 1.5 metre wide door for 200 or 300 people to get out, so they were falling, getting suffocated and so on.
Well, I spoke to Professor Edwin Galea. He's Director of Fire Safety Engineering Group at the University of Greenwich. I asked him what he, as a fire safety expert, would be looking at and examining if he investigated this case.
Well, there's a number of things. I mean, first of all, what materials were there in the ceiling area? If these sparklers set the ceiling material alight, the material must have been highly combustible. So it's either the lining on the ceiling or perhaps there were lots of decorations up there that easily caught fire and then spread the flame. So that's the first thing I'd be looking at. Second thing I'd be looking at is how many people did they actually have downstairs in the nightclub area? How many were they licensed to have and how many did they have? So, for example, if there are more than 60 people down there, then you would expect to have at least 2 emergency exits, and the stairs leading out of those, out of that basement area, should also be protected, should be covered, to enable people to get out safely in the event of a fire. The next thing I'd be looking at is, well, even if there were 2 exit points from downstairs, were the exits easily identifiable? Were they obstructed by materials? Were they blocked? Were they locked? So how many exits? Were they easily available, accessible? And then once they get up to the upstairs, how many exits did they have upstairs?
And what sort of risks do you think these venues specifically carry? I guess just talking about exits, you've touched on one there, but what kind of risks do these particular types of venues carry, do you think?
Well, I mean, in these sorts of environments, I mean, the use of pyrotechnics is I mean, it should be outlawed. This should not be permitted indoors, having pyrotechnic materials indoors, especially in basement areas, and especially where you potentially have flammable materials such as decorations or possibly even the acoustic insulation that they usually put around nightclub areas, bars and so on, where bands play or there's loud music. It's usually covered in acoustic materials. Sometimes they can be materials such as polyurethane foam, which is flammable. And so if you've got those lining your wall, A, they shouldn't be there in the first place, but B, you certainly don't want anything flammable anywhere near them. So all these sorts of things need to be looked at very carefully. And certainly whenever I go into a space that I'm not familiar with, the first thing I do is I look around for the emergency exits. So I try and identify where the emergency exits are. So I have a plan in my mind as to how I'm going to get out of there in a hurry if I have to.
Well, that was Professor Galea there, fire expert, safety expert. Our BBC Verify team have been analysing the many images and videos coming out of Cole, Montana. Richard Irvine Brown has more details.
Obviously, since this horrible incident, we've seen several videos of this fire spreading throughout the nightclub. What was new yesterday evening, what we hadn't seen before, were two stills. Now, one of those shows what appears to be a fire in the ceiling. You're looking at it now, with people holding up those champagne bottles with sparklers attached. I think you can make out just about in the background, there's somebody in a black dress and a helmet. Now, another photo shows this person dressed exactly the same. We can even make out the same tassels on the dress. And again, they seem to be holding champagne bottles with sparklers attached. These we have not found copies of previous to yesterday evening, so we think they are recent. We have matched details in these photos to inside the nightclub.